All right, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story takes place back when I was in high school. This was my actual grade 11 year. Now, reminder, in grade 11, I was basically known as the ultimate F-boy, meaning that I would literally do the devil's tango with a ton of different girls. But the thing is that honestly, around this time, I won't lie, I was also a helpless romantic. I think that's one of the reasons why I got with so many girls to one day find the one and marry her, but not literally. I remember one time when I was in high school, I was walking down the hallway and I saw one of my friends. I remember I walked up to him and I was like, yo, what's going on, bro? And I kind of dabbed him up. When I dabbed him up, I remember he looked at me and said, yo, Bubba, I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like, I've been feeling hella lonely, man. Like, do you want to like maybe like go chill sometime, go hang out like the mall or something? At first, I'm not gonna lie, I thought I had plans with the girl, but I ended up not having any plans, so I ended up saying yes. When I did, I remember he was excited and we ended up going to the mall after school that day. When we got to the mall, I remember my buddy said, oh, yo, bro, like I have a chick that's also coming. She's like a friend of mine. Like, she's kind of clingy, so like just be careful. At first I didn't care, so I was like, oh yeah, like sure, whatever, because the bro code states if a bro has, for example, a girl that they're seeing or they're even just friends with, she's off limits. So I didn't care and I said sure, bring her along. And when she got there, I'm not gonna lie, she looked really good. She was very attractive, and on top of that, one thing I couldn't stop noticing was her massive cherries. At first I was trying to like ignore it because, you know, I try not to look, but honestly I think the cherries got the best of me. I kept looking and looking and it just got really awkward to the point where I couldn't really have a conversation with her without looking. Reminder, I was a really active teenager at this time. I was a teenager, okay? Like, let me be. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember me and her and my buddy, we were all walking around the mall. And when we were, I remember we ended up passing by this jewelry store. Now, this jewelry store is very common towards women and some guys that are getting married because there was a lot of engagement rings there. And me, I remember I was looking at them just because, you know, I wanted to. And we were already near the store anyway because my friend had to take a phone call. So while he was on the phone call, I was kind of just looking at the rings. And as I was looking at them, the girl walks behind me. She walks behind me and with her cherry literally hitting my shoulder, she looks at me and says, oh, like, are you choosing one for like a special person you like? I looked at her and I'm like, oh no, I was just looking. I wasn't really just like actually buying one or anything. She looks at me and says, that one right there is so nice. Like, oh my goodness, I really want it. And she ended up looking at me and said, whatever girl you're getting, that's the one you want. I ended up looking at her and I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And I kind of just ignored it. Now you guys are probably thinking from the title of this video, I bought that ring. Well, I didn't. I actually did not buy it at all. It was too expensive and I think it was almost like worth $2,000. Okay, like $2,000 worth. But the story does get really intense. I remember as I was walking around the mall and stuff with my buddies, once my friend got off the phone, we were going to a bunch of different stores. And I remember there was a Walmart connected to the mall, and when we went inside Walmart to look around, because I think all of us know that I love going to the bike sections of Walmart and riding around the bikes, checking out the video games they have, and on top of that, just kind of playing with their toys. I remember I was looking around and I ended up finding something on the ground. It was shiny, it was under the toy section, and when I looked under the aisle it was under, I ended up pulling it out and it was a ring. Reminder, I was already down on one knee and I saw the ring and I pulled it out. When I pulled it out and I was already on one knee, the girl was there. She looks at me and says, whoa, is that a ring? I remember I instantly stood up and put it in my pocket and said, no, it's not. Because I didn't want her thinking I bought the actual ring. I remember she looked at me kind of curiously and then walked away. I'm not gonna lie, I got really lucky with that, but the story does get way worse. I remember I basically had this ring and I just put it in my pocket. Knowing the value it had in it, more than $2,000, there was no way, and I mean no way, I was gonna let some random stranger have it. So at first I was thinking about putting it to the front of the store and basically seeing if it belonged to anyone in the store. But when I went to the front of Walmart to like the, you know, convenience center where like basically like you get help for customer service, they looked at me and basically they didn't say anything. I showed them the ring and everything. They said, that's not a part of our store. Sorry, we can't do anything about it. And it walked away. So honestly, I looked like I had a free ring that was worth $2,000. Now, some of you guys are probably thinking, oh, just take it to a pawn shop and get $2,000. I was, but there was no pawn shops really around here in Canada for some reason. Like, I haven't seen a good pawn shop around here at all, I think, growing up. And reminder, I live in Vancouver, so I've never seen one before at all growing up. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember I basically put it in my pocket and left it for the next day. I remember the next day, I basically wore the same jeans almost every day. And none of you guys can laugh at me because let's be real here, most of us wear the same pants or sometimes even the same t-shirt every day when we go to school. And me, I wore the same black jeans I was wearing. I went to school, and when I went to school, I remember when I put my hands in my pockets walking down the hallway, I felt the ring. I was like, oh, damn, okay. The ring's in my pocket. The $2,000 ring that I probably should have taken off at home and given to my dad to like, I don't know, find a way to sell it or something. But, you know, knowing it was in my pocket, I kind of just started fidgeting with it when I was walking down the hallway. And then eventually, I would just kind of fidget it like through my fingers somewhat. It makes sense because it's a ring, obviously, so that's the only way to fidget with it. But then I remember as I was walking down the hallway, I ended up running into the girl girl with big cherries that my friend was friends with. I didn't even know she went to our school, to be honest. I looked at her and I'm like, oh, hey, like, I didn't know you went here. She looked at me and said, oh yeah, like, I thought you knew that because like we've literally passed by each other all the time in the hallway. No, I didn't know. Sorry, is what I told her afterwards. She looked at me and said, well, like, honestly, I'm just curious. Like, yesterday you were being kind of awkward once we went to Walmart. Like, are you good, by the way? Like, do you like hate me or something? I ended up looking at her and her cherries and looking at her. I was like, nah, to be honest, like, you just actually like get kind of hot. She looked at me with excitement and then really started to smile more. And then I ended up adding her on Snapchat. Now, I know this actually ruins the bro code that I said in the beginning, but I'm gonna be honest here. She was attractive. And honestly, if let's say my friend said that she was up for grabs, I was gonna grab it, literally and mentally. So going on with the story, I remember basically I was walking down the school hallway with her. And as me and this girl were walking around the school, a lot of people were looking at us, but at the same time didn't really care enough because nothing was happening. At least that's what they thought. I remember when me and this girl ended up going to the cafeteria because they were serving breakfast there in the morning. I went in the lineup to grab food and then I dropped my ring. I dropped the ring that was in my pocket somehow because I guess my sweatpants just kind of ended up having a hole in them or something. I have no idea. But basically the ring fell down. I go on my knee to go pick it up and the person right in front of me in the cafeteria lineup was this chick with big cherries. I literally pick up the ring. I pick it up with my thumb finger and my index finger and I basically pulled it up. And when I pulled it up, she was looking down at me and freaking out. She was like, oh my goodness, wait a minute. Are you marrying me? No, wait, are you asking to marry me? We just met. And the fact that she thought that I was asking her to marry her, even though we just met literally the day before, was obnoxious. But this girl took it so literally because I guess she was a helpless romantic as well. I have no idea. But I remember I looked at her and I'm like, oh, like, wait. And I remember I stood up and instantly she grabbed the ring from me, put it on and said, it's literally the one that I wanted. Oh my goodness, Bubba, like, you're so nice. I'm gonna be honest here. That's not for you, is what I told her. She looked at me. She's like, oh yeah, then why else would you get this specific ring? Because I found it. She looked at me again. She's like, stop lying, Bubba. That makes no sense. And right as she says that, I remember everyone in the cafeteria that was there for morning breakfast was clapping. They said it was a weird place to do it, but it's pretty cute how I asked her to marry me in the cafeteria. Which, reminder, I didn't actually mean to, okay? Like, it just kind of happened by mistake. And I remember the next couple days, she kept messaging me, begging me to hang out with me and all this stuff, and kept calling me her fiance to other people. At first, it became like an inside joke to kids in my school, but then people started taking it literally, to the point where I knew I had to take that ring off her somehow. So I remember one time I was walking with her down the hallway, being the good fiance I was, I guess, and I told her, hey, like, your ring's looking kind of dirty. I should probably clean that up. I remember she gave me the ring. She's like, yeah, like, can you take it to the wash? Like, it's actually kind of dirty. I think it's because I wore it in the shower yesterday or I had it in the bath. I'm not really sure. I don't know. She was being really weird about it. So I basically took off the ring off her and I basically put it in my pocket. And I legit ran, and I mean ran away with the ring in my hand saying, ha, psych. And basically I ran all the way to my house and gave it back to my dad so he could sell it. After I gave it to him, I went back to school, and 2 hours later, my dad comes back to the school at lunchtime. He gives me $2,000 in cash. And when the girl with big cherry said, oh, what is that from? I said, oh, it's from the ring that you stole from me, so I took it back. And basically, I remember she basically started crying in front of everyone. It was embarrassing, but honestly, I'm not gonna lie. It was not her ring in the first place, or neither was it mine, but finders keepers, losers weepers. She wore 1,000 faces, all to hide her own. Atticus. Now, this quote honestly is one of the best quotes ever because it has a lot to do with today's story. And don't get me wrong, today's story has something to do with a lot of things that I wish people just wouldn't do, and that's cheating. And today, I'm going to be explaining how my girlfriend literally ended up married. What is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story takes back, I want to say, 2 years ago. This was when I was actually 19, and basically, I was just living on my own, doing my own thing, and actually, funny enough, doing YouTube. Now, around this age, I'm not going to lie, a lot of people already, like, you know, go to school, go to college, and do all that stuff that most people would do. But me, on the other hand, I was at home making videos inside a penthouse. Yes, I lived in a penthouse for a bit, and thanks to you guys, it was like living like a king, and I enjoyed it. But honestly, I decided to move things along and basically move out of there. But before I did move out of there, I lived a pretty cool life. I mean, all I would do is wake up in the morning, record videos, and sit like 8 hours in front of my computer playing video games, making videos, and well, I guess just kind of be alone. This led me to basically becoming a helpless romantic even more than I used to be back when I was a kid, and one thing led to another. I would always end up going to the club that I lived near and basically finding women that I could maybe one day fall in love with. It's pretty sad to say, don't get me wrong, but I remember one night I was basically laying down on my bed in the same room that my setup was in, and basically I was just looking up towards the sky and just thinking about my life. I had a pretty nice view, so there'd be some nights where I just look outside and just hope that maybe one day my life could actually really go somewhere. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm like, you know, depressed or anything, okay? I'm really not. I actually love my life life, and thanks to you guys give me another day to live. But the thing is that, you know, when you're alone, you realize that there's a lot of things that you wish you did but haven't already. It's kind of like going through your bucket list. So I remember basically I decided to basically just look outside and hope for the best until the next minute I basically got a call. I got a call from my buddy, and I remember answering the phone. I'm like, yo, what's going on? He said, yo, bro, it's Friday night. You're not working, right? Nah, I'm free. What's up? Dude, you should come to the club. There's like a lot of girls here. I think it's like a ladies' night or something, dude. You gotta show up. At that moment, I realized that I don't have to be alone. I could just go to the club and find random girls. So that's what I did. I decided to get ready, you know, listening to my Suits theme song, the Greenback Boogie, and basically got my best outfit on and started basically heading downstairs. When I did, I left my building and I basically went straight to the club that was literally like 1 block away. When I got there, I remember I entered inside and I saw all my friends there. I saw everyone there, and he was right. There was actually a lot of women there. I remember I met up with my friends and I told them, bro, we gotta play the game. Now, if you guys are wondering what the game was, the game is called Have You Met Blah Blah Blah. Basically, it's a game where you would walk up to a random girl or guy, can go for either gender, and basically you walk up to them and say, hey, like, have you met? And then basically introduce them to the friend that you want them to meet, and basically, you know, see if your friend can shoot a shot. It's from the show How I Met Your Mother. If you guys don't recognize the game, it's a very common thing, and me and my friends, we all love the show, so we decided to play it our own. We started playing, and I walked up to a bunch of different girls, and basically I remember I was standing behind my friend, and then he went up to her and said, hey, I was just curious, like, you look really good, but have you met Bubba? Instantly, I came up behind him saying, hey, what's going on? And I shook her hand, and boom. Right away, when I looked into her eyes, I saw something. I don't know what it was, but this girl, she seemed more mature than most of the other girls in this club. I remember I looked around, and I started talking to her, and I'm like, so, like, what you been up to and stuff? You know, basically starting off a conversation. And this girl was mature. She seemed really out of place actually being at a club, which is mean for me to say, don't get me wrong. But you know that feeling when you look into someone's eyes and you seem like you already know them? It was one of those, and I know I sound like a helpless romantic again, but it's just something that seemed off. I remember I started talking to her, you know, me and her started flirting with each other, and one thing led to another. We just kind of clicked. Now at this point, I would usually just like, you know, bring like her home and stuff and maybe just do the devil's tango. But I didn't really feel like doing that with this girl. I actually wanted to actually get to know her, know what she wanted to do, because like I said, you know, finding people in like, you know, after high school life and basically meeting people is kind of harder than it looks. We don't go to the same place every day and always like, you know, see the same faces every day. You get to see new faces, and when you see one that you actually enjoy, it hits different. So I remember me and this girl, we were talking, and you know, one thing led to another. She told me, you're really cute. I was just wondering, like, what do you do? You seem very like happy with yourself. I remember I looked at her and I'm like, what do you mean? Then she told me, well, like, out of everyone in this club, like, everyone just talks about school and work and all that dumb stuff, but you don't really say anything. Now there's a reason for this, and that's because I don't really want to go around to like a bunch of different women saying my job is YouTube and I talk about doing the devil's tango. Don't get me wrong, as much as I want to wear a golden star that says I have over 2 million followers on TikTok, it doesn't really suit well with me. So I remember basically I would stay away from that topic, and I told her, well, I'm just happy where I am with life. And then that's when she really started to really, you know, talk to me. And then one thing led to another. I just kind of like, you know, made up something saying I was like an editor for a YouTuber, and she loved it. And then that's when I realized that I really liked this girl. Like, I generally actually liked her. It was weird. So I remember from there, I ended up giving her my number and going back to the boys. The boys were weirded out because they were thinking I was going to take her home, but they were not really questioning it, but weirded out how I didn't just bring her home. My friends were talking about it the whole entire night with me as we were getting drinks from the bar, but I basically told them, bro, I'm not going to lie to you, man. Like, I actually think she's the one. When I said that, all the guys were laughing, which, I mean, fair enough. It's the boys. If the boys don't make fun of you, they're not really the boys. So basically from there, I kind of just ignored them, and then one thing led to another. I ended up getting a text message, and it was literally the girl saying, hey, I had a really fun night. We should definitely hang out tomorrow. What are you doing? And at that point, knowing my schedule was mostly free, I decided to say sure. The next day, I remember I went to go hang out with her, and me and her, we basically went to a movie, and we started like, you know, going out and stuff. And I remember when it came to it, I told her that I could drop her off home. So I remember I ended up getting her in my car, and when I told her that, she actually panicked. She didn't want me to drive her home. For some reason, she refused to even bring me anywhere near her house, which, I mean, fair enough. Maybe she had parents at home. I don't know. But basically, after a while, I kind of was annoyed, and I decided to ask her. I said, wait, why don't you want me to like drop you off home again? And then she said, oh, we can just go back to your place. So I remember I basically ended up taking her to my place, and when she got to my place, she was actually amazed. She literally told me, an editor can get this much money to live here? Yeah, is what I told her. And then basically we ended up just sitting on the couch and just enjoying watching a movie again. I don't know, movies were just something I really enjoy. Now this is where the story gets really awful. Basically, I want to say like towards late night, like I want to say this was like 11, 12 at night. She kept getting phone calls from someone, and I have no idea who, but every time she would basically get up, start heading towards the bathroom and say, hello? And basically, it seemed like she was was arguing with someone. I remember when she came back, I decided to tell her, hey, I can just drive you home and like, you know, you can go talk to your parents or something if there's something wrong. She ended up looking at me saying, yeah, my parents, you can take me home. So at that point, I found it weird how she let me drive her home. So I decided to drive her home. And when I did, something was really off. This girl was definitely hiding something. And you know that feeling when someone's hiding something from you and you just need to know what it is. So basically I started asking her questions like, oh, what do your parents do for work? You know, where are you from? You know, started asking the more basic questions that I usually should ask instead of just getting straight to the point. And if you guys are wondering, no, we did not do the devil's tango at her place. We did not. Because when I got to her place, I remember basically she literally ended up leaving my car and running straight for her house. And basically she did not even say goodbye. Not even a goodbye kiss. That's depressing, actually. Holy cow. But I remember I decided to stay there and park there for a bit longer to see what was going on. So then afterwards, I remember I basically sat there and just, you know, waited. I waited and waited to see if I would even get a text from her saying, you know, thanks for tonight or something. But then as weird as it was me being parked in front of her driveway, a person with another car with some like old Honda ended up driving into the parking lot and basically exiting the car and going inside. I had no idea who this guy was, and nor did she mention any other guy in her life. So afterwards, I remember this guy, he ended up, you know, going to the back of the car in the trunk, picking up some groceries for some reason at super late at night, and basically started walking inside. Me, I was still watching this from my car, and I was like, wait, what? So I was confused, and I decided to get out of my car, and basically when I started walking up towards the doorstep, he was already inside. The guy had a key. I decided to knock on the door. Yes, I know it's really ballsy, but I did it. And when the door was open, no joke, this guy had a wedding ring on him, and he looked at me saying, hey, can I help you? I remember I looked at him, and then I looked behind him, and it was literally the girl I was just out with. Apparently they were married, and I didn't want to mention anything because this guy was staring me down like, you know, nonstop. So I looked at him and said, oh, I was just wondering, like, where's the nearest gas station? I'm kind of lost. I'm not from here. I remember at that point, the guy ended up looking at me all like weird, and basically when I looked behind him, I saw the girl that I just went out with smiling, but at the same time really weirded out how I would just cover for her like that. And the reason is I'm the last guy to try to ruin a relationship. It's just not me. Even though they were married and stuff, and you know what this girl was doing was wrong, I wasn't the one to basically tell him. I just took a girl out on a date. She was literally at my house 20 minutes ago. Yeah, I'm not that guy, okay? I'm really not. So I remember once he told me where it was, I ended up just leaving, sitting back in my car, turning up my music, listening to NF. Yeah, kind of like the best thing for me, I guess, at that time. And what can I say? I guess, you know, like I said in the beginning of the video, she wore 1,000 faces all to hide her own. I remember I was laying down beside this girl, and then out of nowhere, I ended up looking at her nightstand and saw that there was a ring there, and then her husband walked in out of nowhere. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story all takes place, funny enough, actually my grade 12 year of when I graduated. Now, when I graduated, I'm not gonna lie to you, I did become more mature and not do the devil's tango as much as I really did back when I was in high school, but at the same time, I still took my opportunities and moments. Like I said in many videos, I've mentioned that usually throughout life, I go through life saying yes to a lot of things. Like for example, if a girl walked up to me and asked me out and I barely knew her, chances were I probably would have said yes to her. And I remember there was this one time specifically where me and my friends, we all decided to go out one time and basically go out to this club that me and my friends decided to go to at least once a month. The only reason we did this was because we knew like after graduating, our lives would be so ahead of us and we would always focus on school or work. So we decided to basically have this once a month meetup where we would make sure we still stayed as friends and kept close. And I remember as me and my friends were all in this club just hanging out talking, and actually someone on the dance floor, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing this really young woman at the club. I looked at her and I saw her and I thought she was attractive. She was a hot brown haired girl that was actually decently attractive. And when I looked at her, I kind of thought like, hey, like she kind of looks like my middle school crush, but she wasn't. I don't know. I was just in my head about things and I just kept staring at her to the point where she ended up staring at me back. She looked at me back, and then afterwards, all my friends just looked at me saying, yo, bro, she looked at you back. Just go talk to her. Go say something. I don't know if I should. No, Bubba, just do it, bro. Come on. Just because we're out of high school doesn't mean you're out of the game, silly. And as true as that was, I remember I ended up walking up to this girl and said, hey, like, how's it going? Oh, hey, I saw you were staring at me earlier. I wasn't sure if there was like something on my face. No, I was just, you know, you look good. So I was just curious and stuff, you know, just what's up? And from there, me and her, we actually got along really well. And we actually ended up hanging out the entire night. Like we would dance together. We would go have drinks together. And every time we went for a drink, for example, I remember I would always ask her these like questions and stuff because I did want to get to know her more. But there was one question specifically that she would just not answer. And every time I asked it, she just kept like, you know, getting distracted and deciding to do something else with me. And the question was, oh, so I was just wondering, like, are you like single? And every time I would ask that, she would always make a joke like, oh, like, why do you think I'm here, silly? Or for example, she would say things like, oh, like, it's kind of complicated. And then it kept going on from being totally single to, well, it seemed like she had someone in her life. Now, obviously, I'm gonna say this right now, usually I don't go for women that are taken. I've done this many times throughout high school, and honestly, it really leaves a bad taste in your mouth after you do it. But one thing I will say is that this girl seems so unsure if she was single or not that I decided to just leave it up to fate to decide if she was. And boy, can I say that was the biggest mistake I've ever done. Because I remember throughout the night, towards like the end of it, I would say, I remember I looked at her and I ended up saying, hey, so like I was just wondering, like I don't live far from here. Do you want to like maybe come back to my place? She looks at me with her eyes wide open and she ends up telling me, oh, I mean, like, how about we plan that for another time? Yeah, sure. No, that's cool. I'm down. Here, let me just give you my number. And then afterwards, she ended up grabbing my phone and putting her number in. And at the same time, I decided to basically take her phone and also put my number in there. That way she would have it saved. But I remember as I was putting my number into her phone, I ended up seeing a notification pop up of someone with a blue heart emoji saying, I'm on the way to pick you up right now. Did you have a fun time with your friends? And at that moment, I got really confused. A heart emoji is one thing, but a blue heart emoji? Now, I'm gonna say some science here, and I'm gonna actually break it down what a blue heart emoji is. Ladies and gentlemen, a blue heart emoji is basically showing love towards a friend. A red heart actually means love, and a pink heart's like, oh, like I'm in a cute relationship with them. At least throughout high school, that's kind of the science I learned from it. I don't know, comment down below if you guys have a different idea of it, but for me, that was kind of the science. So I remember basically I saw this and in my mind, I was thinking to bring it up, but at the same time, I didn't know if this was just a friend of hers that was just picking her up. Like I had no idea, no information other than it was a blue heart emoji. I remember I looked at her and she looked at me and handed my phone back and we switched phones and one thing led to another. I ended up telling her, okay, so I guess I'll message you. You better, is what she says back, and she walks away. At that moment, I knew something was up, but at the same time, I got distracted with my friends afterwards because they all came up to me cheering for me saying, yo, Bubba, like look at you, man, the player back into the game. Even though I really never was out of the game, but I don't know. I did have a moment of calm, I guess you could say. But what ends up happening next, I gotta say, was the most insane thing ever. Because the next day I woke up to having a terrible headache. And it's not like I didn't remember anything. I just had a major headache for some reason. And I remember I ended up going to my phone that was charging and I saw instantly I got a text message from the girl that I met the night before. I remember she texted me saying, hey, Bubba, like I was wondering, what are you up to today? And one thing led to another. I ended up texting her back saying how I was basically just planning on staying home. So I had really no other plans. And maybe if she wanted to hang out, that would be cool. She got excited. She said what time to pick her up. And that's exactly what happened. But when I went to go pick her up, something was very off because the address she gave me, I ended up going to and I parked in front of her house with my car. But then out of nowhere, I ended up seeing her come from a different house that was like a block away. I didn't know why she sent me a different address. Maybe she didn't feel comfortable with me knowing exactly where she lived, or maybe, you know, she didn't want her parents knowing that she was getting picked up from a dude. I have really no idea, but I found it really odd how she ended up sending me an address that was not her own. Obviously, though, I decided to shrug it off. Me and her, we had a great night together. I'm not gonna lie. We ended up going to the movies. We got popcorn, and obviously we ended up going for bubble tea afterwards and basically talking about the movie and stuff. But when it came towards the end of the night, I remember I ended up looking at this girl and I asked her once again, so like I was just wondering, do you want to maybe head back to my place? She ended up looking at me again with her eyes wide open and she's like, I mean, actually, you know what? I think we could go to my place. Here, wait, let me check something. She ended up going on her phone and she ended up basically like looking at someone's location. In my opinion, I thought it was her parents' location. And then she said, oh, I mean, like we can go back to my place for like a couple hours if you want. Yeah, you know what? Sure, I'm down. And I'm not gonna lie to you, at that moment, I got severely confused because why would you let me go to your house at the end of the night, but not let me go to your house before when I was going to go pick you up? Like it made really no sense and I got really confused from it. But at the same time, once again, I just thought maybe it was a trust thing that bothered her. So I remember we ended up going back to her place and me and her, we instantly sat down in the living room. We started talking about life and stuff. But when I entered her house, one thing I will say is that this house did not seem like it was a house with like a family in it. Like, you know, when you enter a household, either your friend's house, your grandma's house, or anyone's house really, and you start noticing like really easily if it's like a, you know, a family house where like, you know, there's a mom and dad in there, or like, for example, if it's like a grandma's house or something. Well, when I went to her house, it seemed like it was just a couple living in there. Like it didn't seem like a house that would have, you know, parents in it. So I was really confused. And as I was looking around, I felt really odd. And I basically looked at her and said, oh, so like, do your parents live with you? Yeah, they do. But I mean, they're usually out of the country like right now. Oh, okay, cool. All right. Do you know where the bathroom is? Of course I know where the bathroom is, silly. Here, let me show you where it is. And when I went into the bathroom, I am not joking, I started to realize that there was definitely definitely someone else living in this apartment, because there was like a bunch of men's cologne that was in the bathroom, and I looked around and I was just really curious of if she wore men's cologne or if someone else was also in this house. Now, in my mind, I thought instantly, you know, best case scenario, it was probably her brother, if she had a brother. And at that point, I started questioning myself on the toilet as I was taking a dump. Who lives in this house other than this girl? And trust me when I say this, things got a lot worse from there. Because I remember when I came out of the bathroom, one thing led to another. She ended up making me a cup of coffee, and well, things got really close, and we ended up actually, funny enough, we ended up making out on the couch. And then me and her, we ended up going to her bedroom, and yes, we ended up doing the devil's tango. But I am not joking. When I went into the bedroom, I didn't have a really good chance to look around because obviously I was doing the devil's tango. But right afterwards, when I finished, I ended up looking around the bedroom, and I saw there were so many signs of this woman being taken that it was scary. Like, for example, the closet had like a bunch of men's clothes in it. And when I looked at the nightstand, I saw a lot of books about the stock market, which, I mean, I don't know what girls are into the stock market, but definitely was not this girl that I was with. So at that moment, I looked at her, and as I like turned my body towards her, wearing absolutely nothing, by the way, I ended up noticing her nightstand. And her nightstand, the only thing she had on it was a ring. But not only a ring, the ring was right beside a photo of her wedding day. And at that moment, I knew that this woman was a married woman, and I was doing the devil's tango with her. At that moment, I started panicking. I got up instantly, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're married? And right as I said that, a man ends up walking into the bedroom, and he's like, honey, who's this? And at that moment, it all came together. I realized that the blue heart emoji was her husband, and that the cologne was his in the bathroom. And the reason she did not let me pick her up from her house was because her husband was home at the time. At this moment, my brain was frozen. I didn't know what to think, and there was a guy right in front of me looking at me wearing absolutely nothing, seeing my eggplant hanging down, and he knew instantly what was up. I ended up getting my clothes on, and me and him, we ended up going to the living room, and he was just kind of like upset at me, but at the same time wasn't like severely that angry, because he just wanted to understand how this happened. And I told him about, you know, the club and how I met her and how it was just a one-time thing. And every time his wife would come in to like basically try to show justice for herself, her husband would always just make her silent. And honestly, I felt really bad because, once again, I don't really like getting in between relationships, but this one was already a bust from the very beginning. But if you guys want to make sure you guys don't get into a relationship like that, follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.